Imagine waking up tomorrow and your bank is gone. Not closed, not under maintenance, just gone. The app doesn't load, the website shows an error, ATMs don't work, support doesn't answer. Your money is still technically yours, but you can't access it. Sounds dramatic? It has already happened in different countries during different crises. So here's the real question. What if money didn't need a bank at all? What if ownership wasn't stored inside a building, but inside a network? To understand cryptocurrency, we first need to understand one uncomfortable truth. Money is not paper. Money is not coins. Money is not numbers on your screen. Money is trust. Thousands of years ago, people traded directly, apples for bread, fish for tools. That was inefficient, so communities chose something to represent value, and eventually they chose someone to keep track of who owns what. A record keeper. Over time, that record keeper evolved into a bank. Banks are giant trust machines. They maintain the master ledger, the notebook that records who owns what. When you send money, the bank updates the ledger. When you receive money, the bank updates the ledger. Everything depends on that ledger, and more importantly, on who controls it. For centuries, this system worked, but it has weaknesses. Banks can freeze accounts, governments can print more money, transfers can be slow, expensive, or restricted. In 2008, during a massive financial crisis, when trust in financial institutions collapsed, someone asked a radical question. What if the ledger didn't belong to one institution? What if everyone had a copy? That someone, known as Satoshi Nakamoto, introduced Bitcoin. The idea was simple, but powerful. Imagine a public notebook that anyone can see and anyone can verify, but no one can secretly change. When someone sends Bitcoin, the transaction is broadcast to a network of computers. These computers check whether the sender actually has the funds and whether those funds have already been spent. If everything is valid, the transaction is grouped together with others into a block. You can think of a block as a page in the notebook. Each new block is mathematically linked to the previous one, forming a chain. That's why it's called blockchain. If someone tried to change an old transaction, they would have to rewrite that block and every block after it on millions of computers at the same time, which is practically impossible. But who adds these blocks? This is where miners come in. Miners are powerful computers that compete to solve complex mathematical puzzles. The first one to solve the puzzle earns the right to add the next block to the chain and receives newly created Bitcoin as a reward. This competition creates incentives that make cheating extremely expensive and honesty more profitable. Instead of trusting a central authority, the system relies on mathematics, cryptography, and economic incentives. No boss, no central server, no permission required. Now imagine you want to send money to a friend in another country. Using traditional banking, the process may involve multiple intermediaries, fees, delays, and limited working hours. With cryptocurrency, you send value directly from one wallet to another, peer to peer, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, across borders. Another important feature is supply. Bitcoin has a fixed maximum supply of 21 million coins. No one can decide to create more. In contrast, traditional currencies can be printed in unlimited quantities, which can lead to inflation and reduce purchasing power over time. Bitcoin's scarcity is embedded in its code. It is not based on a promise, but on mathematical rules. However, cryptocurrency is not magic, and it does not eliminate trust. It shifts it. Instead of trusting banks, you trust open source code. Instead of trusting executives, you trust transparent algorithms. Instead of trusting policy decisions, you trust a decentralized network. There is also a trade-off. In the crypto world, you are your own bank. That means if you lose your private key, there is no password reset. If you send funds to the wrong address, there is no customer support to reverse the transaction. Freedom comes with responsibility. Cryptocurrency markets are also volatile. Prices can rise rapidly and fall just as quickly. Innovation attracts opportunity, but it also attracts speculation and scams. So crypto is not just a technology, it is a new way of thinking about ownership and coordination. It asks, who should control money? Centralized institutions or decentralized networks? It redefines ownership not as a number stored in a company database, but as an entry in a global distributed ledger maintained by thousands of independent participants. If a traditional bank disappears, the system can freeze. In a decentralized network, the ledger continues to exist because it is not stored in one place. It exists everywhere at once. Cryptocurrency is not about hype or getting rich overnight. At its core, it is about creating a system where strangers can agree on who owns what without needing to trust each other personally and without relying on a single authority. It is about engineering trust through code and incentives. And that idea extends beyond money. Once you can decentralize currency, you can explore decentralizing contracts, digital ownership, identity, and even governance. Whether cryptocurrency becomes dominant or evolves into something new, the question it introduced cannot be ignored. What if we don't need the middleman? Once you understand that question, you begin to see the financial system differently. Maybe the most important innovation was not a digital coin, but the realization that trust itself can be redesigned. And in a world built on trust, that might be the most valuable innovation of all.